The one thing that I would come back to that you mentioned, having 17 new cities of friends that you can show up and immediately have a family, was something that I never took for granted from my times of traveling and meeting new people. You meet people from everywhere, and everyone says, if you're ever in my neck of the woods, I've got a couch for you to sleep on. While you are missing out on some of your friendships back home, it's always nice to know that you're continuing to make new friendships on the road.
I love it when I, just connect people on WhatsApp, connect people on Instagram, and I say, hey, message this person. A couple days later, I get a selfie of them or a video of them like dancing in the club or them on a hike. And I think that actually brings me so much joy that I'm able to connect those people even though I'm not there and really give these people a different experience. So I think it makes such a more fulfilling time traveling. Every time you meet a new person, you start to understand a different perspective on life. Whether you agree with it or not, you start to understand that different people in the world perceive life differently. You also put yourself in positions of uncertainty and discomfort. And learning to deal with those situations is so crucially important. To be able to figure out, like, where am I going to sleep tonight? Or how do I speak to this person because I don't know their language?
All right, Gabe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I think we probably need to set up this whole conversation by leading with the fact that you're probably the most extroverted person that I've ever met in my entire life. Has it always been that way for you, or is there something that flipped inside of you at some point?
Jeez. Yeah, I am very extroverted. But I haven't always been as confident with my extreme extroversion. I think everyone goes through like growing phases throughout life, and like in high school or before that, kind of trying to figure out how to present yourself and going through different phases, right? And I think I really, obviously through university, like really grew into myself and became comfortable with being extroverted and the way I do that. So yeah, wasn't always extroverted, but I was called by my ex-girlfriend socially exhausting, and this is something that my family and friends love and think is hilarious. It's because I can talk to everyone, and if you hang around me for a long time, I will continue to talk to everyone.
So we met back in 2012 while you were studying at McMaster and running for the cross-country team. As far as I can tell from the outside, since then, most of your life has revolved around running. Was that a conscious decision or just something that you've fallen in love with and fallen into place?
Definitely fallen in love with, fallen into place, but I think my relationship with running has changed drastically over time. I think running was always just a hobby, something that I did on the side of, soccer growing up in high school. In my childhood, I played soccer, and running was the sports team I joined on the side to keep busy in high school. And I really didn't take it that seriously. And I think coming into university, I realized that I wanted to actually train for it. And so I started taking it more seriously in university. And I didn't make the cross-country team the first year. I was cut from the team, and I think that was a real changing point where it was like, do I actually want to do this? And if so, I got to train for it. So I trained on my own until the next tryouts, and then I made the team. And I put my head down, and I grinded, because it's like, I want to do this. If I'm going to do this running thing and this elite performance track and field and cross country, I do need to put in the time. And so that entire year, I put in the time and the work. And the next year, not only did I make the team, but I also was one of the top performers on the team. And that was something that was really rewarding for me. And and my relationship there with running became, I guess, more to the intense training side, right? Where I started learning like a lot of the training techniques, things and differences in learning things about like my body and training and how to be an athlete, really. So I think my relationship with training was and running was as an athlete. And then I think after university, it then changed again. So I continued competing and getting workouts from my coach in Canada, and I realized I didn't really like running alone, right? And I decided I wanted to go try to join some different groups. I had moved to Berlin and I was, running alone, and I really wanted to find that kind of cohesive tribe, that training group. I think that was the thing that really found, or that really gave me a lot of. It really gave me a lot of joy, right? When you're training with a group, you get a lot of joy from like working to a common goal together, and that was something that really gave me a lot of joy, and I didn't find that at all training alone. So I started looking for different groups, and I started joining German track and field groups, and the track and field groups were very typically German. It's like, okay, you show up, you press go on your watch, auf geht's, you do your workout, and then you go home. And it was very, despite being around people, it was still isolating. And I was like, it wasn't actually that exciting. So it was that stereotype of German stoicness with the stereotype of the split short athlete, and that didn't mix. And then I found midnight runners running along the streets of Berlin, and I loved it. There was only 10 people. It just started in Berlin. It was the second city, and I was like, I love this kind of like wild energy. And I remember we all went to the bar after and socialized and hung out, and I was like, this is actually what I was craving, this community part of running. And I remember that first night we got kicked out of the bar, and I was like, yep, this is for me. I like this. So I think for myself, running has definitely changed, but it's always been a part of my life. Running initially was something that was just done on the side, and then it became something very serious, and then it became something to have fun and socialize, right? So now for me, running is a way of connecting with people, socializing, and truly feeling good in my body. And I think throughout that, and I guess especially throughout the training aspect, I learned that it can also be a way of almost meditation, right? Escape with your mind, and kind of like a reconnecting with yourself. So I think I still use running in my life as a way of kind of recentering myself, and a time where I can be out for an hour, off my phone, not talking to anyone else, and just kind of letting any thought coming in and out of my head. And I often find that if I'm struggling through a problem or struggling with motivation, I can go for a run, and I come back and I have that motivation. I have that solution to the problem. So for me, running is I guess four-pronged rather. It is a way to. It was a way just to, like, a hobby. Then it was something very like intensive training. Then it was to socialize and I guess recenter with myself.
Going back to the fun aspect for a minute, why on earth would anybody subject themselves to a beer mile, and why would anyone try to run it in under 5 minutes and 30 seconds?
So a beer mile is where you chug a 355 milliliter can of beer and you run a lap of a track, and then you repeat that 4 times. So that's 4 beers and 4 laps. And this was something that our friends in university did to kind of let loose after a really intense season of training and running. And this was a fun competition that we did with, you know, our teammates as well as other schools visiting, just to really like break down the barriers and make it feel fun. It's like, this is something that doesn't need to be super serious. So the initial reason was, you know, just to have fun and make the thing that we trained really hard for suddenly silly. Because when you chug a beer, all of a sudden it's a very it's people don't take it too seriously. It's funny and comical. So I think that's one of the reasons. Another one of the reasons, if you were called to be on the Canadian Beer Mile team, then you got to step up and represent your country. You have to represent your country. So this year I'm actually going to be joining the Beer Mile World Championships again, and I will be doing the Beer Mile representing Canada. I did it back in 2017, which was quite a while ago now, and I placed 5th in the world, and ran a beer mile in 5 minutes and 15 seconds. But the rule is if you throw up, you have to run another lap, or you're disqualified.
You're now the global community leader for Midnight Runners, which is a fancy way of saying you get to fly around the world supporting and opening new chapters in large cities. Again, from my perspective, it seems like a role that you were almost born for. As you reflect on the last 5 years with Midnight Runners, do you feel the same way, or is there something else that you feel you're hungering towards?
So yeah, I think from the outside, a lot of my job looks like I'm just moving to the city, organizing events, and bringing people together to do these running events. But I think behind the scenes, there's a lot that goes on. So I have to work with the different city leads and crew captains around the world to try to make sure that things are still taking over. Make sure that we're communicating globally. Still working on making sure that we're still have the same brand. Finding and managing new partnerships like Reebok, Mizuno, and we have beer company sponsor in Latin America. So a lot of managing those partnerships, expectations, and making sure that we as a global community are hitting our KPIs, and something that do all the boring stuff behind, so that the crew captains can really focus on just having fun and organizing the run. But that is the I guess the 9 to 5 part of it, and then the evenings are filled with really what keep me going through it all. Where I get to organize awesome runs, meet amazing people, and really make running fun. So the concept of Midnight Runners is you run through the streets with a bunch of daisy-chained speakers, and you do boot camp exercise stops along the way. So we'll do maybe a 5 to 10 kilometer run, but throughout we have 3 to 5 boot camp stops. So we'll stop every kilometer and a half, stop, do some exercises, meet some new people, and then continue on. So it's a way of keeping the group together, making sure that people are interacting during the event, and really keeping that energy high. And then we always finish at a bar, which is a social space. So the core part of Midnight Runners is a community. And it's my job when I move to a new city is to kind of build and foster that community. And look for some of those people that are going to be leading that. So when I move to a new city, I look for the most golden out there, just the most golden individuals. And when you get a group of really golden individuals together, just more positivity is attracted. More people come together. And so my job is to kind of really ignite that spark, and then give it to the volunteers to kind of let them take it on the way. So ignite the spark, show them the culture, and let them take it away. The initial question, though, being, I've been doing this for the last 5 years. Has this become something that is tiring? And am I looking for something else? Am I looking for something else? Yes. Has it become something that it is tiring? Yes. It's actually it's very exhausting. I move every 3 months. I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and actually during last year, I wasn't in one place for more than 1 month, and that was actually really socially exhausted, or that socially exhausted me. That socially exhausted me. So I definitely experienced a bit of burnout, because moving around constantly can be taxing, and you have to try to set up your routine in a new place every single time in order to kind of like feel yourself and start feeling productive again. I think with the last couple of years, it's been, yes, taxing, but still extremely rewarding. You get to, meet all these amazing connections around the world. Now I can show up to 17 different cities around the world and immediately have a community, have a family. And I'm very lucky, but I think something that was the flip side of that is that you're not home. You're not in one place, and you can't really be a committed friend because you're split literally around the world. So it's difficult to be there for important moments and the down times where you want to be with your family and friends back home. So whether it be weddings, like bachelor parties, or having a baby, those first moments, those really important moments, or whether it's like going to grab like a coffee midday, or bumping into someone on the streets and chatting on the street for 10 minutes, and like those moments that I'm missing out on a little bit. So I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side, but I am looking forward to being in one place for a bit, and just kind of like being able to ground my roots a bit more, because I've been moving for the last 5 to 6 years, and that has started to drain a little. I also want to be able to take some of the skills that I learned with Midnight Runners, like all of my event management, my partnerships, community building. I mean, we have now 2 people working for Midnight Runners, which means you have to do a lot of different things. So everyone's wearing a bunch of different hats, and luckily I've had to wear a lot of new hats over the last couple of years, and it's really helped me learn and grow. And I want to take some of those skills to another company that just I think everyone needs to kind of try to start taking the next step. And I can only keep on moving around the world for so long. So I'm starting to think about what that next move is.
That is absolutely a fair statement. I know for me, I know we left about the same time in 2017 to go travel the world. You ended up in Europe and I ended up in Southeast Asia. And after about 8 months, and like you said, things happen at home and you're missing out on things and you wonder, and then it happened to be the right time for me to move on from the job that I was doing in Southeast Asia and come home. And for you have this project that's taking you around the world, but eventually it definitely does begin to get exhausting. The one thing that I would come back to that you mentioned, having 17 new cities of friends that you can show up and immediately have a family, was something that I never took for granted from my times of traveling and meeting new people. And especially in Southeast Asia, you gain such an influx of people from everywhere else in the world that you meet people from everywhere. And everyone says, if you're ever in my neck of the woods, I've got a couch for you to sleep on. So that, while you are missing out on some of your friendships back home, it's always nice to know that you're continuing to make a bunch of new friendships on the road.
on that, it's been specifically beautiful to see actually some of those friendships start supporting each other, right? And being able to connect some other friends when I see them traveling throughout the world. So if I ever have a friend traveling through Europe, I say, hey, if you're literally in any of the major cities in Europe, let me know, because some of my best friends live there, and I'll connect you and have a couch to sleep on. They'll take you out in the town, and I love it when I just connect people on WhatsApp, connect people on Instagram, and I say, hey, message this person, and a couple days later I get a selfie of them or a video of them like dancing in the club, or them on a hike, and I think that's actually brings me so much joy that I'm able to connect those people even though I'm not there, and really give these people a different experience. So when you're there visiting as tourists versus you're there visiting a local and get to see a bit of their life, I think it makes such a more fulfilling time traveling.
So you've mentioned Midnight Runners now has 17 chapters across the world. You're in Tokyo right now, setting up the latest one as number 17. These chapters are run, at least in a good part, by groups of volunteers. I was a captain in Toronto for the better part of 2 or 3 years, through, as we started in 2019, through the middle of the pandemic sort of thing. And from my experience, it almost seems to be a fight to become a city captain, or a crew captain, as you called them. What do you think makes people such rabid fans of Midnight Runners?
So yes, confirming on the first statement, yes, it's all run by volunteers. So each city kind of runs independently. We're able to set up the proper organization, give all the volunteers proper tools in order to run the crew, run the organization, whether it be the Instagram, posting and organizing the events, or the general structure, brand guidelines of graphic design, etc. What do I think that people, I guess the next question is why do people love Midnight Runners so much? I think right now, especially coming out of the pandemic, people really crave community, right? I think that it's very easy as a young person moving to a new city to be surrounded by so many people, but at the same time feeling very disconnected and feeling very lonely. And I truly think that people love Midnight Runners and communities like Midnight Runners because it provides community. And I think it really is a solution to urban loneliness. I think that it is also a combination of a couple amazing things that make you feel really great. Right? One is moving your body and the endorphins that you experience when moving your body and running. So you get that natural runner's high. And then music. We blast music, and you get the endorphins of running with music. And you're with a group of people. So you're feeling this mutual experience with other people, and you're socializing, and you're feeling like that you belong, and you connect. Even if you show up and you just run in the middle and you run beside a speaker and you don't talk to anyone, you still feel like you're a part of that tribe, and there's something very primal about that. So a lot of people tell me that they experience the same feelings that they would experience jumping up and down at a music concert, right? Because you're moving, you're listening to music, you're surrounded by people, you're yelling, and that kind of release of energy is really beautiful and specific. And there's so many endorphins that are released, and that people connect with each other really easily. So once you go through that experience, you come back to the bar, people are super open to connect with each other because, one, you've been through that experience together, and you're literally feeling a runner's high, and you're feeling just kind of like the best, most confident you. So I think that all of those together really makes a really crucial concoction for building community and connection And so that's why I think people are really crazy about Midnight Runners, is because they can connect with people in lonely cities, as well as feel all these amazing experiences that you won't normally get to experience on a weekly basis.
So you've done a great job there of explaining the factors that come from the outside in terms of why people would love the community. But I know you've worked really hard to help foster this sense of community within the group. From a top-down view, how do you focus on building something with such a great culture?
I think a lot of the culture that we initially had was disseminated through global crew captain summits, where we had a lot of the crew captains from around the world come together. But during the pandemic, we had to cancel those, and we haven't been able to continue them on since, because we've grown and it's very difficult to get a lot of the captains from around the world. And at these summits, we've been able to talk about like what is our identity, how do we run our events, which is very crucial to like who we are, and what are some of the things that we can do in order to develop the culture that we want within our community. So upon the cancellation of those summits, I had to look to different ways. And when we have our global communication platform, where we talk to all the different captains on that you're on, was Slack. And that's one way of talking and communicating. But I think from myself, I found it actually difficult post-COVID to make sure that we're maintaining that same culture in all the cities. And I think it will, if you set it up and give that right spark, for the most part, it will run in the right direction, and making sure you have these check-ins with the city leads. So I talk to the city leads and make sure that things are still running the right direction. I also try to visit some of the cities and make sure that they're still doing their events properly. They are, still developing the culture that we identify as Midnight Runners. So I think a lot of it is making sure that the city leads understand the core concept of, who we are and what we are. But there's some cases that I actually specifically had to visit last year, where I had to actually go and visit the cities and help support them because they got a bit off track from what the culture is. So right now, Blake, I'm not sure the last time you've been to Midnight Runners in Toronto, but there's 300 to 500 people running every single week in Toronto. And there's these like super high energy events, very well organized, awesome venue. And the flip side of that is like I showed up to a community in the United States, and there was one crew captain and there was 5 runners, and it was a very different vibe and energy. It wasn't that kind of same upbeat thing that you would picture Midnight Runners to be, and that Midnight Runners as. So I had to go and I had to really restart the community and rebuild some of that cultural knowledge. What is Midnight Runners? How do we do things? And kind of give a guideline. And so I think a lot of it is like giving people the tools and material and having these conversations about like, what are we? What do we want to do? What is our goal? What is our intention? And, once we set that intention, I can give tips and tricks of like, how do we achieve that? So, for example, this community in the United States was their main events were doing a cheer zone at 2 hours out of the city at a 100-mile race, and it's actually that has a very a difficult barrier for entry, right? You're not going to drive all that way. You're not going to go cheer on people that you haven't met before. And it's also an ultra, which is a very specific niche in terms of like the fitness community. So I says, okay, you're still doing your boot camp runs, but let's cut back on the really intense ultra long runs and the cheer zones, which have like a difficult social barrier to enter. Let's start doing like 5-kilometer boot camp runs. We'll do them in easily accessible spaces, and we'll just do it once a week, so people know this is the one time a week that you're going to be doing this. And I think that's something that I would suggest actually for not just all Midnight Runners communities, but all communities, is like make the one time that you're going to meet, and especially if it's in person, and really claim that as your day. It was, whether it be like, every Wednesday night, or whether it be like the last Friday of every month, or whether it be, I don't know, all days that end in Y, whatever. Claim it as that space and time that you're gonna meet, so people know that you're going to meet on those days, and people can then ingrain it into their schedule. I think so. I had to do some small transitions with the culture in some cities, but it is difficult maintaining the culture, and it's not done like any other company where you have to like follow a very strict set of like guidelines. This is more done like through social relationships and connections. Like this is at its heart a community, and that's the way we run and disseminate information. Is like if I go visit a city, or another crew captain goes to visit a city, that kind of cross-cultural exchange is really important in order to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page.
Taking a step back, you're one of the most traveled people, as we've talked about, that I know of in our age bracket. What's your biggest takeaway from traveling that you don't think someone who's ever left their own country would understand?
What you can do traveling, you can also do in your own country. I think the thing that is really valuable about it is that it's very difficult to do in your own country. So when you travel, you put yourself in these new experiences. You meet new people who have different perspectives on life. And every time you meet a new person, you start to understand a different perspective on life. Whether you agree with it or not, you start to understand that different people in the world perceive life differently. You also put yourself in positions of uncertainty and discomfort. And learning to deal with those situations is so crucially important. To be able to figure out like, okay, where am I gonna sleep tonight, or how do I speak to this person because I don't know their language? How do I pay for this taxi? I don't know how much it costs. Maybe they're overcharging me 10 times. I think going through those uncomfortable situations teaches you a lot about life, and meeting all these new people opens your mind to all these different experiences. And I think you can get that those same experiences back in your own country with the right mindset, but it's really difficult to put yourself in that mindset. So I think the reason why travel is so valued in our modern world is because it means that you've taken the chance to put yourself in a different mindset and view the world in a different way, and put yourself through all these like learning experiences. You can do that in your own country by maybe having some sort of spontaneity, and going to like hopping on a train, hopping on a bus, and not really knowing where you're going, and kind of figuring out when you get there, right? Whether it be, well, I'm just gonna hop on a train to this national park. We'll see if I can do a hike, and then I have to figure out where I'm gonna sleep after. I'm gonna throw my tent in a car, and I'm gonna drive, and I'm gonna figure out what I have when I'm there. Or it could just be, hey, I'm gonna go onto the internet, look up events that are in the city, and join a random meetup. Right? there's a platform called meetup.com, and you can go and just search for all the events in your city and join something that is going to make you uncomfortable, make you try to talk to new people that you wouldn't normally talk to. And hey, you might not like it. You might not get along with the people there, but it's going to be an experience that you would actually, that it's that same kind of experience that you're going to experience while traveling. It's putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and meeting new people. And I think those, you can equally experience those in your own country as you can traveling. But the thing is, it's very hard to do and very hard to understand that mindset without just hopping on a plane and going somewhere else and trying to and traveling. That's my take on it.
Speaking of uncomfortable situations, in 2019, you ran an ultramarathon through the mountains of Tajikistan, and it was turned into a documentary called Running the Roof. And you ran a marathon every day or over a marathon every day for a week straight, and ended up getting to almost 400 kilometers, I think. What did completing that tell you about your limits as a person?
I don't know if that is the one that necessarily tests me on my limits. I think that experience, yes, physically challenged me a lot, but I think the big takeaway for me is that, is continue to be spontaneous, continue to be curious, and continue to start exploring. And it also it taught me, is if you have an idea, just go for it, follow it up, and chase it down, because there's 1,000,001 ideas, amazing ideas every day. It's just there's very few of those ideas that have the people determined enough behind them to actually make them happen, right? And I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, is be spontaneous, take that idea and run with it. And in this case, very literal sense, but I think the biggest takeaway for me was, actually follow through with that idea.
Follow through on your ideas. It's a pretty novel concept that I don't think a lot of people, given what you're saying, definitely take the time to do. So Tajikistan is tucked away sort of between Afghanistan and China, not a place that people would necessarily travel to on a whim, maybe not even a place that most people have heard of. In today's world, a lot of the popular narrative is sort of framed as an us versus them sort of thing. And Tajikistan, for a lot of people, I would think would almost certainly fall into a them category. But what has traveling to some of these places taught you in the last 5 years about sort of the similarities in the human condition?
I really truly think that we're all the same. We're all out there to feel a sense of connection. We're all out there to feel purpose in life, and we all, want to feel loved, and we want to feel that our moments on this world are really important. So I think traveling to Tajikistan, how it happened is, we were drunk in a pub in London. We spun around and pointed at the map, and we said, wherever we land on this map, we're gonna do a running adventure through. And I landed on the map, and I felt very ignorant. I had no idea that Tajikistan existed, and I had already pictured myself as a fairly well-traveled person, but this was it sparked some curiosity inside me, where I started doing a lot of research on the history of the place. And it was actually part of the old Silk Road. And the culture in that place was that you would always host travelers, and that's something that we really truly experienced, is through the history of the Silk Road, always hosting travelers. We went through, people were so friendly and so welcoming, and we really connected with the people that we were running through this valley. So we ran from the border of Afghanistan through the Pamir Valley, through the Bartang Valley and over the Pamir mountain range. And through that valley, we connected with so many people living there, and everyone was like really hosted us with open arms, and it was really very beautiful. And through connecting with all these people, it made me realize we're really, really all the same. And I think growing up, I had these boxes growing up of this culture is this person from here is this, and in Canada, this is how we are. But the more and more I meet people, there's those small cultural things, but the more I meet people, everyone is all these boxes are starting to become one. And it's difficult to explain to people. But I've been all over the world now, and I'm starting to see everyone's the same. Everyone's the same.
Is there a memory outside of your trip through the valley and connecting with all these people? Is there a memory in the last 5 years from your travel that sort of stands out as a life-changing moment or a switch in something inside of you?
That run, or just any time in the last 5 years?
No. Just anything travel related or anything in general in the last 5 years.
I went through a really difficult part when initially moving to Berlin. So this is the first city I moved to. I had obviously done some like backpacking before, throughout India. But after my time in India, I decided to move to Berlin. I had finished university the year before, and I decided to move to Berlin because I wanted to learn German, and I didn't have a job, I didn't have a visa, and I didn't have any money. I used the last of it backpacking, and I showed up, and I struggled. It was a difficult time. I slept on like couches using the couch surfing app, and when that fell through or canceled, I was on park benches. Did it happen for a long time? No, because I found a job within the first 3 days there. But the first couple months there we didn't have an apartment. When I say we, is like my sister and I moved there together. And we found an apartment after, the first month, but it was difficult finding a place to live. It was difficult to start in Berlin, and I think that was we also didn't know the language, right? But that was a really, really big growing moment for me when I did actually come into my own in that city, and because I had to really, really work for it. I had to work for the community around me, and to really just consciously decide, who do I want to surround myself with, who are going to bring me positivity, and I had to learn that the hard way. I also had to learn, okay, what is it that I want to do? What brings me value? And I also learned to speak German, and that was really, really rewarding for me. And I worked at it really, really hard. And so I think that experience gave me a feeling of accomplishment in Berlin, and accomplishment with myself, to really to try to take on the rest of the world. And it made me realize, okay, if I can learn German, maybe I can learn Spanish. Maybe I can learn a bit of Japanese. So over the last couple years, then I learned Spanish when I moved to Bogota in Colombia. And in Japan, I gotta say, it's a lot more difficult in learning Japanese, but I think each each time I move to a new city, it's equally challenging as it was moving to Berlin, and it brings me back there, but it is also equally rewarding. So I think that one switch that really opened my eyes and gave me a lot of personal confidence was that move to Berlin.
What's the term for a person who speaks multiple languages? Polyglot? Is that what it is? You're going to be a polyglot in no time, I think.
We have a mutual friend
Sticking
who's
with
doing a lot better.
Well, they're a little bit, yeah. I know where you're going, but yeah, no, she's a very talented individual. Sticking with the idea of starting and growth and beginnings, I think a lot of people, myself included, experience that things in their life are almost locked away behind having to ask for help. And I know it's something that people struggle a lot with, either through pride or shyness. Do you have any sort of wisdom that you could share from your experience to sort of help people overcome that barrier of asking?
A lot of people are very nervous and self-conscious when it comes to asking for help because they feel like it makes them smaller or shows too much vulnerability, and vulnerability isn't good. But I think showing some sort of vulnerability and it shows your humanness and allows you to connect with people more. I think it always needs to be done in a respectful way. Keeping in mind the situation that everyone else is in, but asking for help doesn't mean that you're any less of a person. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means that you're smart and you're comfortable enough with the people that you're around to do so. So, someone gave me a really nice compliment the other day. They said, the reason why that you're such a great leader in this organization, that you're not afraid to say, I don't know how to do this. I need some help. All right. And I think specifically in this organization, which has so many committed, passionate people around the world that have such a wide range of talents, if I didn't use that and I didn't ask for help, then I'd be shooting myself in the foot. We'd be operating at such a small, we'd be operating a lot slower. So ask for help. If you're struggling with a problem, ask for help. And it also makes you feel really great when people then come to you and ask for help, and that you're able to, share something that you might have extra knowledge or forte on. But asking for help doesn't mean you're weak or stupid. It just means that you're actually you're smart, and it's showing your human side.
Yeah, I think I definitely get that. Some of the best feelings that I've experienced are being on the other side of that ask for help. So people always think they're being an imposition on you when they ask, not knowing that some of the most rewarding feelings that you can have is when someone comes to you asking for help as a mentor. What did being part of a fraternity teach you about yourself that you don't think you would have learned otherwise?
So I was part of a fraternity in college, in university, and that actually it taught me so much, actually. Something that we did a lot was we had meetings every week, and it showed me how to construct and organize a meeting. It taught me how to construct and organize a group of people, a budget, and kind of work together and kind of like collect people's visions. Like, okay, what is it we want to do, and how are we going to reach that together? It also gave me like a very early insight onto how organizations are run. So that was very valuable. But I think that the one of the biggest takeaways is that all the volunteering work that we did. So it actually kickstarted me into, I feel like what I'm doing today, right, is I started organizing events, charity fundraising events, through the fraternity, and that actually gave me such an amazing space to learn and fail. I organized some charity events that went really, really well, and I organized some that didn't go so well, and taught me a lot about event organization, promotion, even content creation, and building a team of people. So in order to make sure that the event actually goes on. So those were all like really, really important lessons for me.
What's next for you?
So I'm actually finishing my time in Tokyo. So I've been here for the last 2.5, nearly 3 months. And I'm going to be coming back to Toronto for a month, which is really exciting. I get to be back for some of those big important moments. I have some friends getting married. I have some friends who are having baby showers, friends that recently got engaged, stag parties. So luckily I'm going to be there for that. And then come July, I'm going to be moving to Milan to start Midnight Runners in Milan. So we're going to be doing one more city, and then I'm going to be looking very shortly after for another position. So I would love to work for like a brand like Red Bull, or an event organization consultancy, or maybe like a marketing agency of some sort. I think those are really like cool companies that I would like to put some of my expertise behind, and so I'll be looking for a shift then. But right now I've been having my ears open, having different conversations with a bunch of different like brands in the space, and seeing kind of like what interests me and what doesn't. So the next step is Midnight Runners in Milan, and then finding someone else to take my position so that I can move on and find the next step in my career.
Nice. I'm excited to see you at Red Bull one day. I'm assuming you're going to absolutely kill it when you get there.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That's all I got, man. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. This was a absolute ton of fun, and you're very well spoken, and you're very well traveled and experienced, and it was awesome to get to download some of that information from your travels and your experience in the logistics of running a multinational corporation. And I just really appreciate you taking time out on a Wednesday morning to have a chat with me.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, hopefully I get to see you when I'm back in Toronto in June.
If people want to follow your stuff, or Midnight Runners, or anything else, anywhere else you want to send them, where should they go?
Check out Midnight Runners on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, Intrepid Soul. And if you want to watch Running the Roof, the documentary of running across Tajikistan, you can find it on, if you're in the UK, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or in Canada, you can find it on Vimeo.